Okay, continuing on, looking at each of these 4 examples that we're going to work with here, we need to find the perimeter and the area of each of these triangles. But we've got a dilemma here on this first one. I'm trying to add up all my sides to find the perimeter, but I'm missing a leg here. And I kind of gave it away there when I said leg. I'm recognizing that I have a right triangle here, and I'm missing this measure here, the leg. And so I'm going to use that approach here. I know that I'm going to have to use Pythagorean theorem. It's a right triangle. I know I can use that. I'm looking for a leg. That means I can start with this hypotenuse. I'm going to square it, would be 25. I'm going to subtract the leg that I do have, but I have to square that first. I'm going to subtract 16, and that will give me 9, and I'm going to square root 9 to find that this measure here is going to be equal to 3. Otherwise, I could have plugged it in Pythagorean theorem and done the algebra. I think most students like that process, though. So if I was going to find perimeter, I'm going to add up all my sides. So I'd be saying 3 plus 4 plus 5 is the perimeter. It's the distance around. It's going to be equal to 12 units. And on these, I didn't want to bother with worrying anybody on centimeters, inches, meters, whatever. We're just going to say whatever the unit of measure is. Okay, to find the area, again, I think it's going to be easiest just to plug in this formula here, 0.5 times height times base. So 0.5, and then my height, remember my height and base have to be at right angles to each other. It isn't going to matter what order I put these in, but 4 times 3, and that would give me 6 units squared. In this case, it just happens to be half. That's not usual though. Notice that I'm putting square here because this is telling us square area of that triangle. Okay, so for our next one, we're finding the perimeter. I have all my edges here, so I can work my way around. It's equal to 11 plus 15 plus 8, which would give me 34 units. For my area, I'm going to use 0.5 times base times height. My base and height have to be at right angles to each other, so I'm recognizing these are my 2 measures that are at right angles to each other. Doesn't matter what order I put them in, but I'm plugging them in there, and I believe that gives me 90. Half of 90 is 45, so this would be 45 units squared for each of these measures. Okay, over here, this triangle just looks odd, because I've got my 3 sides. That's great, but what's this 5 doing out here? This 5 is my height. It is at right angles to this base. And you're like, why did this happen that the height falls outside the triangle? Because we're drawing the height from this vertex to the opposite side. It just doesn't fall inside in order to be at right angles. That's going to happen when you have an obtuse triangle. Okay, so don't let that throw you. Perimeter, we're going to add up all of the sides of our triangle, 6, 8, and 11. So we end up with 25 units there. For our area, we're going to be using 0.5. And again, I have to use the 2 measures that are at right angles to each other. So this side, even though they don't touch, they're at right angles to each other, which would give me 20 units squared. Okay, and over here on this one, again, we're missing a side here. And if we look at this, we can see that we have 2 legs of a right triangle. I can use that process approach. I've got my 2 legs, so it doesn't matter which one I start with, but I'm going to square each of them. 6 squared is 36. 8 squared is 64. When I add them up, I get 100. When I square root that, I end up getting 10 for x. So my hypotenuse is 10. So when I go to find my perimeter, I can add up all these edges, 6 plus 8 plus 10, and I get a total of 24 units. When I go to find my area, I'm going to plug in 0.5, and the 2 that are at right angles to each other would be the 6 and the 8. And that also is going to be 24 units. This is squared though, and this is unusual that they would be the same amount. That just kind of happened there on that one.